24th, our November work session for the Windom Area School District. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I forgot to say it, but let's call the meeting to order. Okay, next up, let's take a look at the agenda. Is there any changes this evening that anybody sees? If not, is there a motion? Thank you. Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes. Okay, with us tonight we have Tom Olinger and Michelle Thyssen from Abdo, and they are going to walk us through our audit. Take it away.
All right. Well, thank you. How are you getting feedback? Okay. Now we should be good. So yeah, well, thank you. My name's Tom Olinger. I'm a governmental service partner with Abdo. We'll go through the audit presentation. Michelle will kind of go through some of the overall audit results and the general fund, and then I'll kind of touch on some of the other funds and trends that we had comparing to other school districts, and we're certainly open to any questions that you may have. So with that, I'll turn it over to Michelle, and she can get started with the presentation.
Tom, hold on. We're just trying to get our speakers figured out.
Well, can you hear me okay?
Mine's all mute.
Okay, Tom, try to talk again, please.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
It's coming from that computer. Okay, try talking again.
Can you hear me?
Oh, that is better.
Okay. I can lean in a little closer too. Does that help at all?
Unless you put your on mute and I unmute mine.
Maybe.
But mute just means he can't hear you.
Okay, Tom, sing us a song.
How's the volume now?
Like Mary Had a Little Lamb, for example.
I wonder if it's echoey. Maybe Holly and Peggy both put your audio on mute with the bottom left-hand corner. Is that
Now we can hear you.
okay? Is this better?
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. And Peggy, if you're still hearing feedback on yours, no? No? Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? Good. Okay. All right. Thank you. My name's Michelle Thyssen. I'm a senior auditor with Abdo, and I wanted to start off by saying thank you to Holly and Peggy as well. You make this audit process really smooth, so I'm excited to share these results with you. Holly, are you sharing, or would you like me to share?
No, I got the presentation up.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we'll start on the introduction slide here. We're going to go over our audit opinion and responsibility of the auditor and management. We'll talk about the general fund results, other governmental funds. Tom will take over and share about property taxes and key performance indicators. So let's start out with the most important part here, our audit results. We'll go to the next slide, and it's our auditor's opinion shows it's a clean, what used to be called a clean opinion. So it's unmodified under GAAP. That's what you would want to see. Also for the legal compliance portion, we had no instances of non-compliance. There's also single audit testing that we did. The district expended more than $750,000 in federal dollars, which requires a single audit. We noted that there's no instances of non-compliance with a single audit. We'd like to note, though, that the guidance is the OMP compliance supplement, and it's for 2024, and it has not been finalized for 2025. So this year, kind of a unique situation between the federal government being a little bit slower and the shutdown. annual audit report will be issued separately once that guidance is finalized. So, those were the audit results. Moving on to average daily membership. This is looking at your student count. So you'll see in fiscal year 24, you had approximately 1,174. And we noticed in fiscal year 25, that number increased. That increase was due to some voluntary pre-kindergarten seats. However, looking at 2026, there will be a slight decrease due to the changes for rules related to VPK seats. So, moving on to the next slide, general fund balance. You can see here that the orange line is your total fund balance. The yellow line is the general fund expenditures. The black line shows the unassigned fund balance. And then your policy is that green line, that fund balance policy. And so that gap between the 20% in the black line and the 45% in the orange line, it's related to restricted balances. We like to see with districts that they have a healthy unassigned fund balance. And we see, you'll notice that there was a slight increase with expenditures in that yellow line. And that's very common. We're seeing that with other school districts, that expenditures are going up. And so keeping that fund balance, having the unassigned fund balance will help you cover these expenditures. So keep that in mind when you're budgeting. And then looking at general fund balances as a percentage of expenditures, you can see that Windom is here in the orange line. We have districts in Region 8 in the yellow line. And Region 8 basically covers other counties in the area, Big Stone, Chippewa, Lac Pearl, Swift, and Yellow Medicine. So it's kind of comparing you to your neighbors there. The black line there is the statewide average. You can see that projections for 2025, Windom Public Schools, it looks like they're right in line with the region there. And then moving on to the next slide, this shows your general fund budget to actual. So looking at revenues here, the revenues came in greater than budgeted amounts, which is good to see. That was because of other local revenues and interest earned on investments. Expenditures were lower than anticipated. That was due to special education salaries, elementary and secondary education salaries, and pupil support purchase services. You'll also see there is a finance purchase arrangement that was issued during the year. That was for the Apple leases. And then there's also transfers out, and that's for the Bridges preschool program. It appears that these are transfers that are made every year, and just to keep that in mind when budgeting. And then the next slide is your general fund revenues per ADM. You'll see in the orange is Windom for 2025. The green bar is Windom in 2024. The yellow line, Region 8, and the black line, statewide average. You'll see the federal sources, the green bar was larger than the orange, and we noticed that slight decrease with other clients as ESSER and GEAR is winding down their federal portions. You'll notice that the local sources for 24 and 25 for Windom, as well as the state sources for 24 and 25 Windom are fairly consistent. And then moving on to property taxes, Tom will take over.
Yeah, that sounds good. So yeah, I think certainly with the federal sources, keep in mind that this common data that we're comparing to is a year behind. So I think we had some of those federal dollars last year that will be dropping off for the region and the statewide averages for 25, and that's pretty much across the board. So with the property taxes, taking a look at this, we look at a couple different things. We look at the per ADM, which kind of is just your straight levy compared to your student count, which, as you can see, is below the region and the statewide averages there. What I really like to look at too is the next couple ones is that really the average school district property tax per home, and then also the property tax per 100K in home value. And this really kind of takes into account your overall mix of market values. So, depending upon, industrial, residential, commercial, what the true impact is on the citizens. And as you can kind of see, that 100K home value, you're really right in line with where the region is at and the state average is at for that. So, and I think this has been kind of consistent year over year for those property taxes. The next slide, taking a look at the general fund expenditures. We look at that overall trend from 23 to 25. So as you can see, the cost has been going up. A couple of things to note. There was some additional, certainly capital outlay in sites and buildings were a part of it, but really across the board, certainly costs are going up. What we're really seeing with our schools, getting hit pretty hard with health insurance costs as you go up, and obviously that is a big portion of your overall budget moving forward. So kind of going back to that overall, when we were talking about the fund balance budget, keeping in line the percentage, as your costs go up, the thing to note as in the budgeting process is you also need your fund balance to go up to keep those percentages in line. So we're seeing this across the board. I think that's certainly, be aware of that as you move forward to make sure that you kind of keep in line with that unassigned fund balance. Taking a look at the trend there of the general fund expenditures per ADM, you can see a little bit of an uptick for the overall expenditures. With our trend line, we kind of are doing that based on the last 3 years for that trend line. But the thing to note there is what I'm seeing across the board is those costs are going up. So once we get the actual numbers for 25, I'm expecting to see that dotted line go up at a little bit steeper rate than what is showing there. So this last year, we have been seeing that. So I think really nothing out of the ordinary there. I think you're staying right in line what I'm seeing with the trends with other schools. But I think once again, keep aware of where those costs are and what that looks like. Drilling down on the next slide, which kind of breaks down the different sections of your expenditures. So elementary and secondary instruction is really kind of what's being spent on the education piece going there. So you do see an uptick there. I think you're kind of pulling closer to where that statewide average is per ADM. So, but normally what's been really nice to see is keeping those costs relatively flat year over year. So nothing out of the ordinary there. I think like anything, if you see student counts reducing a little bit and expenditures going up, this could certainly tilt in a different direction. So you're well aware that those are kind of major key performance indicators, and keep looking out ahead on what that looks like. The special ed education per ADM, so this did have an uptick for this year. This really kind of comes down to what is your mix of special ed versus students too, so that can have an impact on where this is at. But really taking a look at this, you're really within the statewide average of the overall special ed dollars and what is being spent on those. So I think that can change from year to year depending on the mix of students and the needs for special education, but we have seen that gradually increasing year over year. The next slide is the food service. Taking a look at the overall revenues did come over budget, and we did come over budget. Additional dollars received along with expenditures did come in over budget too. I know there was the intent to certainly buy down some of the fund balance that's there with purchase of lunchroom tables and a washer and some of that, kind of getting back to, getting the fund balance in line to where where MDE had it at the 6 month of expenditures for the max of fund balance. The thing to note is that MDE is, working towards back to that 3 month expenditure. So I think you really, by spending some of these dollars, when that is implemented, you'll be in line with where that is. So, I think kind of going forward, don't see that spend down of that fund balance as needed, but kind of continue to monitor and looking at that 3 month expenditure fund balance as a goal to kind of stay underneath that. As I noted in the food service fund, we did have additional expenditures that has been trending up. What I have seen too is that has been the case across the board with school districts, is the overall cost for the food service administration has been going up. So I think nothing out of the ordinary here of what I've seen, but you kind of see trending on the higher end for food service fund. The community service fund, the revenues did come in over budget by about $50,000, along with the expenditures by 15. Yeah, but overall, you were budgeting for approximately a $45,000 increase in fund balance, and actually came at 53. So a little bit of a favorable fund balance there, with an overall fund balance of 306. So Michelle had talked about that transfer in from the general fund of the 83,000 that's there. So we actually didn't have to transfer in as much based on the overall actual amounts that came in for the community service. The overall trends from overall school districts, we kind of see that your expenditures trending up, but you are on the lower end of what we see on the statewide averages. What I would say here is it really is dependent on what services you're providing in the community service fund and those overall expenditures there. So, that can vary there, but, I think just kind of be aware of the costs continuing to increase, in this is included with the community service fund. The debt service fund, this is basically will be funded mainly by your debt levy that you have there. So we have two bonds out there, the school building bonds of 18 and then the facility maintenance bonds of 19. So the school building is the big one there with about 22 million left to go. And that has a maturity of 2039. You kind of see the trend from 26 to 31. Once the facility maintenance bonds drop off, the debt service will decrease slightly of principal and interest because of that. But really, you have your authorized debt levy that is going to cover most of this, so that will kind of follow these bonds as you move forward. So with that, we certainly open it up to any questions that the board might have.
Yeah, I have a couple questions, and I think I've asked this before, and I should probably remember because you've explained it to me. But it seems to me we do a really good job with our budget when it comes to food services. And then when I see these trends, I'm like, how is that we are on the high end of spending our per ADM for our food services, yet we come money ahead and we can buy things with our food services. Do you see trends versus other schools of how we're on the higher end of spending there, even though we have a nice fund balance?
So I think I just want to repeat the question to make sure I heard it. It's basically, you feel like you're managing your budget with the food service, but yet why are we on the kind of the higher end of what those costs are? Let me just kind of take a quick peek at it. And I don't know if Peggy or Holly have any insight on that too, but let me just take a look at the food service fund
Well, one thing we all agree is that our expenditures are going up. We know the price of food, even for our own personal consumptions, is going up, so that makes sense. The one thing that really has helped us the last couple years is the Minnesota free meals for all our school, for our students. So every student gets a free breakfast and a free lunch. But what happens is if those students are free or reduced, they still have to go through that. Then the feds pick up the cost of those students. And if a student is not a free or reduced student, then the state then picks up the cost for those other students. So the combination of the federal revenue and then as well as the state revenue has really made that out, because we never deny a student a lunch or a breakfast. So you no longer have a student that possibly was going through the line and not paying. That has been taken off the board. So that's why one of the reasons why your fund balance is still stable while your expenditures are going up.
Yeah, well, yeah, thanks for that. And what I will say too is that on the one slide with the food service, you know, the trend is kind of showing it leveling off. But what I've been seeing with the school districts too, I have a feeling that's going to go up at a steeper rate. And yours has been pretty consistent, you know, at a rate going forward. So I think that dotted line could be a little misleading just because it's based on prior year expenditures.
Thank you, Tom. That makes a ton of sense. And then Michelle, it was on your slide, but it was right as we were switching to Tom, and he mentioned it briefly. But on slide 8, for those federal sources, I can see it totally makes sense. The different federal funding sources are changing the further we get away from COVID and stuff. But even if you just look back at the green, yellow, and black for 2024, it looks like Windom was behind in federal sources of revenues. Is that a red flag for you guys, or is that just more to do with the demographic of students?
I can maybe answer that, Michelle, just because you have a little bit of a trend with the school districts. But you know, I think it's all in the timing on when it's expended, because really the ESSERs and GEARS were starting to wind down in 24, so it really kind of comes down to when the schools spent the dollars. So correct me if I'm wrong, I'm guessing you spent some additional dollars in 2 years ago, and it slowly started to kind of wind down. So it's kind of a timing issue on what that looks like then too.
Yeah, remember the board, we used it on that HVAC project when we did that, the units on the middle school, high school. So that was the last of our ESSER funds that we used, and that would have been 2 years ago.
Okay, so it's not that we just received less federal sources, it's just we spent the federal sources in years prior, not in 2024.
Yeah, we could have spent it like a year or two later, but we opted just to spend it and get it done, where other school districts might have still been using it to do whatever they said they wanted to do in their application, so.
Any other questions for Tom and Michelle? I know that they both noted it, but when the team was on site, they also noted that it was wonderful working with Holly, that it's going to be a really smooth transition. Well, any other comments, Tom and Michelle?
No, like Michelle, we really appreciate working with the school district, and yeah, if there's any questions that do come up, feel free to reach out at any time. And you know, Holly, in the transition, you know, we're always available for questions throughout the year, so feel free to reach out, you know, as the transition continues.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you. We appreciate it. Really good information. It's really good to be part of the Windom district and seeing these solid numbers. Just calling that first page once again, unmodified opinion, no instances of non-compliance and no instances of non-compliance. That's fantastic. Excellent work. We appreciate it. Okay. Well, then we get to hop to item 5, and we get to take action on approving this audit report. Holly or Peggy, do you have anything else to add before we... Okay. Do we have a motion to move that forward?
Move approval. Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes. Okay, next up, we're going to take a look at our revised budget. Mrs. Peffer and Mrs. Anderson.
Okay, I'm gonna handle this for now. So, what's in the board packet is just one screenshot. I did email out, I think, last Thursday, the entire spreadsheet that goes back. So please, once again, it's just too much data to put in there. So, I'm not really gonna talk on fiscal year 25, the actual numbers you just went over, but I should ask, because I did send that out as well and did a little summary of things. Was there any questions on that before I start on the revised? Okay. All right. So I like to make things easy, so I'm going to start from the bottom up because starting at the bottom just makes it easier in my mind. One thing I always like to say is point out what the formulary allowances per average people unit. It was a 2.75 increase from the prior year at 7,481. And Jamie can, and please Jamie and Holly hop in when I miss something or do something incorrectly. There's an inflationary increase by the Minnesota legislature. It's never going to go above 3% unless the legislature changes that, which could possibly happen in the spring. So. We are anticipating to cross-fund preschool screening. We only get so much per child, and it all depends on how many little kiddos we screen. I think the first time we did about 50, I think Mr. Barfnick reported last month. So usually we do anywhere from 70 to 80, so I know also they do screening a couple times throughout the year, so we just sort of, anticipate the worst but hope for the best. We do approximately cross-fund Bridges Preschool. When the auditor was talking about that transfer, between Fund 4 and Fund 1, that's what it is. So right now, for our current school year, it's going to be about $84,510, and we also use about $25,000 of basic skill funds. So one thing to remember too for Bridges Preschool is non-VPK students do pay a fee. Last year, when all students were voluntary pre-kindergarten or VPK, there's no fees. This year, if they are not a VPK student, then they do have a quarterly fee, and I'm going to be honest, I can't remember what those are, but Caitlin Gilbertson handles all that. So, our operating capital balance is just slightly down from the prior. Once again, that makes sense because we're always trying to make sure our buildings and all our other things are right. We are seeing a drop in our curriculum balance. That is because we purchased CKLA curriculum this year. It's for I can never remember that. It's for the READACT curriculum, and that was $142,000. And now I know, I think math is the next curriculum.
We have social studies coming up and then math, yes. And math we are saving up for because it will be expensive.
There you go. So, all right. And now we're just going to go starting here. From the bottom up, Custodial Scholarships Fund 18. That is mainly the Krieger Family Scholarship. So Jim and Corley Krieger, that's the money that they donate every year, and they award anywhere from 3 to 4 scholarships. It is what I would call its own because they choose the applicants and how much they get. If it's under our control, it's going to be above on a restricted one. So that's why that's separate, because as of now, it's considered a custodial one. We no longer have any building construction funds, but we continue to leave that Fund 6 in there so that we always have the history. And then our debt service, once again, is just slightly above last year. Once again, that's everything from the debt levy. We get money in every month from the state, and then some of that goes into this Fund 7 so we can pay our it's like your mortgage, except this mortgage is only twice a year, August and February. And so you can pay your mortgage on your buildings. So, all right, and now we'll go up to after Fund 7. Let me get my screen here. And we're going to go to Fund 4. A couple different things, as you can see. Restricted is really just preschool screening now, so we can tell we don't have a major fund balance in that. ABE, we are part of a consortium administered by Worthington. One thing with us, we did get additional funding last year to do classes in June, in July. This year, they are not giving us any additional funding for those 2 months, but we are still hoping to do some extra classes in June, and it's all gonna be based on where it is. We got the same allocation from them at $33,000 a year, so if we'll keep Holly, I shouldn't say we, Holly will keep an eye on that in that April, May. If she sees that we're getting close to that top, she'll work with our ABE teacher, Christy Miracle, to figure out what we want to do. So, but the good thing is that we have very high attendance in that program, and it's a great need in our community. So Mrs. Miracle does an excellent job. School readiness is our Bridges preschool. Once again, we talked about how we cross-fund that. And then our ECFE is just slightly up. That's our Early Childhood Family Education Program. And it's also our Imagination Library is funded by that. I know Miss Giesman is trying to do other things in our community to help promote ECFE and by offering different things. So I know she's done things at the fair. She's done Teddy Bear Band. Just a few other things. I think there's a holiday open house coming up. She usually does one in the spring, so those kind of things. So, and then our regular community education classes that Mrs. Gilbertson promotes is slightly growing as well. Is there any questions on community ed, or Jamie or Holly, anything that I missed? Okay, if not, we'll go to food service. You're going to see there is a slight fall. It was really hard to predict what we think our food service costs would be, so I don't see that you're going to probably have this large a fall, but I plan that you might see it drop a little bit just because of that cost of food is just up and down. Once again, there's nothing major in here, no major purchases, but as Tom talked about, that you can't have more than 3 months expenses in there, so once again, you're just going to have to keep an eye on it. We are serving, and I think the principals, especially Brian and Dan, can talk about, we are seem to be serving more meals this fall at the middle school, high school level. So at least that was for the first month. I guess I didn't know if anything other than that. So the more meals you serve, the more revenue you get in, economies of scale. So that's all good. Any question on Fund 2? Now we're going to start on Fund 1. These coming up when it says 24, 23, these are all these restricted accounts. Once again, with a restricted, it means that they can only be spent on certain things that the state dictates to us. So these bottom two are things made by the READ Act. We did have a few funds left over from the READ Act teacher compensation. That's line 24 there. We are continuing to have our teachers do OLA and what's the letters training, thank you. And they do receive a stipend to do this because it's done outside of their contract time. So when these final READ Act teacher compensation funds are used up, that will probably come from the Superintendent Staff Development Fund, which is above. But they made us last year create these restricted accounts. The other one, the literacy aid, was just a 1 year or one-time thing for fiscal year 2025. So you see we spent all those money. We did that to do the letters and the OLA training back then. So, those are done. Q-Comp is its own. So that is money that is paid to our teachers, helps fund our, what's Mr. Huska's position again? Instructional coach comes from there. Thank you. Brain freeze. But yes, so that all comes from the Q-Comp, and once again, we do get aid and levy for that. So that's all good. A lot of school districts want to get into that, and it's closed off for many new districts, so it's really great, and I think we've been doing it for 7 or 8 years, if I remember correctly, so all well and good. The next one is our school library. We get $40,000 every year. It was new aid last year. Who knows what the legislature will do this spring, as they have a shortfall of funds now. So we'll see. Total library cost for our district is approximately $82,000, so that is additional aid, which is great. English learner, we use all of our funds we received. We receive approximately $376,000, but our total cost for all of our EL program, which is going to be 4 teachers, 3 paras, is almost $450,000. So we don't get enough revenue for the expenses, and so that additional expenses just come from the unassigned. Sort of like special education, it just comes from there. Literacy incentive aid, this is something that we've always received, but they've started calling it a new name. So we also use these to pay for anything to do with the new READ Act. We pay for our literacy lead, our Fast Bridge, our CAPT, which is that new dyslexia screener, correct? Okay. And then as well as some staff training to make sure all of our staff is appropriately trained with the new READ Act mandates. Anything I missed on that? Because that's a hard one. All right. Next one is our student support personnel. That's our school nurse that we hired one a couple years ago, and we still continue to get $40,000 funding. Student activities is right in there. Once again, that's money raised by the students, used by the students. So like when the DC trip, band choir, thank you. Any of those things, we never allow it to go into the negative, so it's just there. Marcy Balloon is the one that helps administrator those, so that's good. Scholarships, once again, this is mostly, this is scholarships, like mostly it's Country Pride one, that there is a committee that chooses who gets that scholarship, but we still continue to get revenue for that, so that's there. Payment in lieu of taxes. They are payments made to local governments, aka us, the school district, that help offset losses in property taxes due to non-taxable federal lands within our boundaries. I don't know if I've ever told you guys that's what it means, but there you go. So once again, if there's some land that's taken off the tax roll, for lack of a better word, to do something else, then you get a payment in lieu of taxes paid to us, because otherwise we'd be generating revenue on that. So that's where that goes. Medical assistant is the next one, and if they're crossed out, that means at one time the state said you had to have that restricted account, but then they said then you take it, then it ended, so that's why they're there. The next one is our medical assistants. This is based on number of services provided to MA students or medical assistant students, and we used to help this with our special education expenses. I always like to say during our COVID years, our MA revenue really fell because a lot of those students did not come to school. So once again, we have to physically provide those services to those students to get this funding. Next one, long-term facility maintenance. Once again, LTFM, we've gone over this before. It's replace like for like, and I'm just going to do the exact same thing as if you need to replace a door, you can. But if you want to put a window where the door is, you can't use these funds. It's the easiest thing to explain. This year, we're planning on, actually it's already done, the window caulking at the middle school, high school. That was done, I think, in July, August. I remember them sitting outside our window. The Nest women's bathroom dividers were replaced as well. New water softener and LED upgrades are the main components of this as well. So as you can see, I am anticipating it to fall slightly just because of that, but once again, it's taking care of our buildings to make sure that they can last as long as possible. Achievement integration funds are programs, intervention programs at the elementary and middle school. So all that staff is right there, and we use all those funds. Once again, we're going to go up to operating capital then. Once again, that is falling slightly. Once again, because of the curriculum purchase we already talked about. We're saving for, like I said, social studies, math, especially math curriculum. Roofs, parking lots, air handlers, and also on the horizon, we need to get the gold gym painted here. So there's some of the things we need to continue to save for. Save school library. I know Ryan worked on updating cameras this summer, as well as we are getting some more AED devices to make sure that what we have are up to current, and getting an additional one over the elementary school, and also some door security features that Doug is working on to make sure our schools are as safe as possible. Gifted and talented, our elementary gifted and talented program did end on 9/30/2024, and the board decided to continue that using other funds from the unassigned. But we do receive almost $17,000 that we will use this year towards that program, as well as the one math class taught at the 8th grade level. That is actually a high school level course, if I remember correctly. So, those where those funds go. Basic skills, once again, this is money that we use on, we can use it for EL programs, lower instructor to learning ratios, after school or summer programming, counseling, guidance and social workers, and school readiness programs. So it's about 1.3 million. Let me tell you, we are very lucky. There is a slight increase that we had for this year. A lot of schools saw a decrease. So this is really good. Once again, I can't tell you what they're going to do in the future, but this is good for the Windom School District. So, and then learning and development is to reduce and maintain instructor to learning ratios. And then staff development is the last one that will be a slight increase. But once again, as you get new curriculum and people have to learn it, that tends to go down and then it goes back up as that. Holly, Jamie, did I miss anything on the restricted accounts? And we're almost done. Once again, the last ones are assigned and non-spendable and unassigned. So assigned are accounts set up to be carried over into future years. So it's things like the Eagle Path manufacturing, concessions, weight room, backpack program, facility improvements, and student in need. So that's all in that bucket of money. The non-spendable are items that were purchased last year in fiscal year 25, but for fiscal year 26. Lots of times we try to keep things like in the right fiscal year, July 1st being our first day of the fiscal year, but every once in a while you just have to pay for something prior to that date. So then that cost goes in that non-spendable. This non-spendable amount is the same as fiscal year 25 because we don't know what it's going to be. I don't know what Holly's going to be paying in May and June for after July 1st, so she will track that, but that's what that is. And then up above is unassigned that I'm showing is going to fall slightly for this year. And if we just go up a little bit, it's all because of those ADMs. Last year, our ADMs was 1,198. This year, I'm basing it about a 1,189, so it's just a slight decrease. We knew coming into this year that we were going to see a decrease in those ADMs, mainly because of the VPK funds. Last year, every kid that went to Bridges Preschool in the 4-year-old class got a VPK seat. This year they have to qualify, and there's qualifying factors from the state. So we had 31.59 ADMs for VPK, and this year we're only estimating about 17.5. That is the main reason for your fall in ADM, and that is also the main reason in that yellow line up there, that minimum fund balance is falling because of that. Now, because those rules should not be changing anymore, I hope, knock on wood for you guys, but then that will also level out. We knew last year was going to be an up year just because of those VPK seats, and then we knew this year was going to fall slightly. And you always want that minimum fund balance. We're in a good, healthy state. That's it. Any questions?
When they are that 12% is when we go in, that's the line we have to stay above. Yeah. And what numbers are added together? What's that a percent of? What's the numerator and the denominator?
Just gonna click on that cell there. Nope. Yeah, that's the fund balance policy. But if you just click on the cell, so that's what you do. So you have to take your total expenses, which is you gotta take your total expenses. Yeah. Yeah. So there's the formula. Yeah. So it's AR9 plus AR10 plus AR12. So it'd be all those right there. And then you divide that by your expenses right here. And then that gives you that percentage up above. And that's consistently. Sorry, I have the spreadsheet just set so it just.
So it's your expenditure. It's what's left over divided by your expenditures. Yes. Okay, cool.
And it's only on those that are unassigned, non-expendable, and assigned. All those restricted, they do not include that because they can only be spent on certain things.
Because that's not money that you could be considered to get you out of a jam should the jam come up. That's locked into having to use it. Okay.
Unless that expense is falls in.
Good explanation. I think you did explain some things you've never explained before. Some extra detail in there. I like that.
Gotta go out on a high note.
Any questions? Okay, that looks great. This was an actionable thing. So after having seen it in your board packet and hearing it explained, is there a motion to move this forward? Okay. Again, any questions or comments? All right, you got a lot of trust from the board. You're doing a good job. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Motion passes. Okay, next up, we're going to take a look at adding a additional para position. Mrs. Frank, will you tell us about this?
As the district continues to work through some of our new students who have come to us with IEPs, we have discovered that we are in need of another para at the elementary school, so I just asked the board to approve a 6.5-hour para so that we can meet the needs of our students.
Okay, before any discussion, is there any interest in moving this forward? Great, okay. Any questions for Mrs. Frank? Or Mrs. Wilson is here too, if you have any questions for her directly. Okay, yeah, this is an item that we knew. Mrs. Wilson has done a good job of giving us some background of what we're walking into this year, so not a surprise that there's a need. We have a motion and a second. Again, any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Motion passes. Okay, now we get to take a look at taking action on the CACR and the A report? A&I report, okay. Mr. Joyce, will you fill us in, please?
Will do. Thank you very much. This is an annual report that MDE, through statute, says we need to provide to the board, and we submit our goals and information to their reporting website, and here's our public report on this data. So this is a look back at the 24-25 school year and some goals that we set. You previously might have known this as the world's best workforce report. The state is now calling this the Comprehensive Achievement and Civic Readiness Report, and then the Achievement and Integration Report. So we call it the CACR. Okay, so the 24-25 school year. First of all, who are we? And looking at our district demographics, you can kind of see that laid out here. Our two largest demographic groups are going to be white students and then students of Hispanic heritage, and then just a smattering of others there. But obviously, if you walk through our halls, you can see that on display every day. So going to our next slide, though, this really paints, I think, maybe a more accurate picture of some of the challenges that we face and with some of our unique needs. Our students who, the free and reduced price lunch count, that one's a little bit difficult to come by nowadays, but still the state says we are at 48.9%, so we're almost 50% in that free and reduced. So we have a lot of families with a lot of economic disparity in our community. But then our special education and English learner numbers, 20% special education, 23% English learner. That's a big number, okay? And coupled with that is you got many students that maybe are a little bit of both, you know, that might be EL and maybe dealing with some special education and come from families that are maybe in economic challenges. So a lot of needs there. So as we move forward, we're going to kind of identify some of the areas that the state says we have to report on. First of all, equitable access to effective and diverse teachers. This is a goal that the state sets forth, and we have to report how are we doing on this. So we're aiming to hire top talent, utilizing an early retirement incentive so we can recruit and hire early. What we're trying to do, we've got a 3-year mentoring program. We use teacher evaluations using the Danielson framework, which this year we actually added a piece because of being in QComp that actually focuses on how are we representing the diverse needs of students in our classrooms. And that's a component that we added into our observational protocols this year in one of our domains. So attend job fairs. We try to get to those as much as we can. Professional development for our staff, including reading comprehension and engagement. This past year, we trained our middle and high school staff on reading comprehension and engagement. And I know with the READ Act coming forward, many of our staff are going to be involved in the phase 2 of that rollout here, so we can better equip our staff in how do we teach phonics at the middle and high school level, which is a very different concept than many of us were trained to do. So New teacher boot camp, we continue. Letters in our elementary, and then core instruction, or OLA, in our middle and high school is some of the things that we are doing to train our staff to be prepared for the challenges that we have. So our goals, first of all students are ready for school, and our goal in that area is that our 4-year-old preschoolers will go from 44% of kids at or above the developmental level of building later on the letter and word knowledge measure on the DRDP assessment in the fall to 65% in the spring. Our early childhood teachers did meet that goal at 78%. In math, our 4-year-old preschoolers will go from 32% of students at or above the developmental level of building later on the number sense of quantity measure in the fall to 55% in the spring. We met that at 70%. So very, very nice goal achievement there for our early learners. That was great. All students ready for school. We continue to maintain that 100% of students will be screened before entering kindergarten. We did meet that goal. 100% of students were screened prior to entering kindergarten in the fall of 2024. And our crew that comes together to do that does a great job. So next, we've got 100% of students fully immunized, immunization series in progress, or of conscious or medical exemption. We did meet that again. 100% of students were fully immunized, immunization series in progress, or of a conscious or medical exemption at kindergarten entry for the 24-25 school year. And we thank our nurse, Jackie Larson, and as well as all of the staff at the elementary that helps track and code all of that information, because it's a big undertaking. Next goal, all students are ready for career in college. So we've got 2 goals actually in this area. 100% of students will have a post-secondary plan in place by the time they graduate, as evidenced through one-to-one discussions with the counselor administration and following up on survey data. I actually meet with each senior. Mrs. Squires helps with that throughout the year. I meet with each senior before they leave, kind of as an exit interview, and I can tell you that all of our students have something of a plan prior to leaving us, and quite a bit of those involve further education. Many are entering the workforce. Some go directly into the armed services, so but we make sure that everybody's got a plan before they leave us, and that's our goal, is that each student, no matter how big our classes are, has a plan before they go. So we did meet that goal at 100%. Next goal, all students graduate from high school. Our goal is that Windom schools will mirror the state goal, which is to reach 90% by the year 2025 with no student group below 85. We actually didn't meet that one because of what I've stated here. Our rate fell to 85.7, and we dug into that number just a little bit, and we found that there was 7 unknown students in that data, and I know for a fact that at least 3 of those graduated, and 4 of those we had some coding errors that happened, and we're correcting those issues moving forward, but the number that the state has for us is 85.7. I don't feel that's an accurate number or an accurate representation. When we actually compute the data, knowing on the kids who actually graduated, I believe our rate is 94%. Okay, 94% of students in the class, and this is the class of 2024, all right, because that's how we would look at the data. 94% of those students graduated. So we knew about this issue in the spring, so we looked at the class of 25 to make sure none of those errors happened again, and we have a better representation. We had some students that left our school or did actually drop out when they got to that point, not because of resources we were providing or not providing, but life changed for those folks. So we will see some students that do not graduate, but our rate was actually 94%. But that cannot be changed in the state website despite all of our pleading separately. So all students prepare to be lifelong learners. This was a new goal that the state asked us to create, and we use our Eagle Achievement projects as our goal here. So what we do is we say upon graduation, all 12th grade students will have completed an Eagle Achievement project that consists of identifying a problem within the community, researching solutions, and implementing change. 100% of Windom seniors completed an Eagle Achievement project in the 24-25 school year. So, achievement and integration goals. All racial and economic achievement gaps between students are closed. In this goal, we actually saw a gap widen, okay? And one of the big issues that we are seeing as it relates to this goal in, I believe this is our math goal. The next one you'll see our reading goal. The biggest, not, I won't say problem, but preventative issue that we have is that our student demographic is getting much more diverse, and we have a lot more students of color than we did 5 years ago even, 8 years ago even, 10 years ago. So what we're seeing is that the gap is actually widening a little bit. So this gap widened just a little bit, and we're going to keep working at it. That's all I can say about that one. So it's not because of lack of resources, I can tell you that. I mean, we wish we could have a one-to-one with some of our students for all of them, but that's not very possible either. So the next goal is a STAR reading gap goal, and this one again says that we're going to reduce it, and we actually saw that one increase just a little bit as well. So the gap, unfortunately, there got just a little bit wider. The baseline gap was 33. And I guess the gap is decreasing steadily over time, but in that one we are making progress in the reading, but we put a lot of efforts into reading comprehension strategies last year as well. So looking at our overall data here too, I mean we're looking at an overall Hispanic population that's grown in 5 years, 195 students. 195. So from 134 up to 329. So that's huge growth. And we can't generalize all of that, but many of those students are coming as students with limited or interrupted formal education. So they might be coming in 9th grade or 11th grade, but have the reading level of a 3rd grade or even less. And that's a lot of ground to be making up. So just keeping that in mind. Our EL department, our intervention folks are doing what we can with the resources we have, but that's a big demographic, district-wide. That is a very big demographic. So, and I think students do come to us because we do have maybe a reputation of helping those students. I think that has to be acknowledged just a little bit, because students don't come to a school if they aren't helping kids, and I think we have to be cognizant of that, and we're still trying to make an impact there, but families talk, and if we weren't helping kids, they would not be coming. So we have to keep that in mind. Courage Retreat, this is related to some of our integration funds. 7th graders from Mountain Lake, Jackson, and Windom gathered for a Courage Retreat by Youth Frontiers in the Nest on October 2nd, 2025. It's designed to help students build community, reflect on character, grow in leadership and courage. Our high school students actually led small group conversations, modeled leadership, positive character traits, and actually the folks that come in spoke highly of Windom Schools, the organization, thanking Mr. Nielsen and our student support staff in the middle school. I actually think Bree was a part of that as well. And then very, very highly of the organization on our end and what that was. And Mountain Lake, Windom, and Jackson students participated in that, and our students did a phenomenal job being involved in it, but also leading the conversations. And we should be very proud of our older students who led those conversations and represented Windom very, very well that day. Again, this report has to be submitted to the state system. I worked with Holly and Peggy, and we got that submitted, I believe, and saved. Working with Mr. Barfnick, he kind of puts goals in as well. So this is kind of our annual report, and I'll happily answer any questions you have.
Thanks for being aware of the problems and addressing them. And the other thing that's not on here is the attendance. I know it was a big measurement for you last year. How is that coming into this year? That's still strong, or?
So looking at our overall truancy numbers, they continue to be strong. Like, we don't have a lot of students who are dealing with truancy, and we're on top of students who are. Every week we have meetings. If they get into that truancy, we're sending letters to hopefully prevent them attending court and things like that. As far as our overall absenteeism, we still see higher numbers of absenteeism than many districts in the state. But our overall absenteeism number is down this year quite a bit compared to last year. I think we were down by like 3% compared to last year. And our overall absenteeism number, the last time that I had checked it, and I actually can, because of our new EduClimber system, I can pull this number up like that, okay? And I know I can look district-wide, but I'm just going to look at the high school really quick, as long as you ask, just to pull this number up, if you give me just a moment. But So we're down 2 percentage points from last year, and right now we're at 10.08 of students that's considered chronically absent. And what that means is they've missed more than 10% of the school days. So
Okay.
we still know that's an issue, and we're still trying to positively prevent that. We're sending letters home every week for students who reach certain thresholds on absences. There's just, when you see a demographic like we have though, and I'll just give you a for instance here without giving names, you know, I've got there's a family trips that happen out of the blue, and they're going to be 10, 12-day trips. And
Yeah.
okay, that's kind of where we're at, and we're working with those families to make sure the kids are taking care of their educational needs, but those happen more frequently than people realize. So life happens, and we try to work with our families, but with our demographic, this number that we have of absenteeism is not shocking.
Yeah.
Actually, it's comparatively pretty strong if you compare it to other districts in the state. I sit on those attendance pilot conversations too, and the one thing that I would say is consistent across the state for attendance coding is nobody's consistent. And some schools we're counting things as exempt absences that were not exempt, because an exempt absence doesn't count against absenteeism. And they were counting like medical appointments as exempt absences. Well, of course your absence data is going to look pretty good, you know, and now they're fixing that. And that's why I say, like, many schools have reached out to us for how do we code absences, because I feel like our numbers are accurate. I don't know that they're great numbers. I wish they were, you know, higher numbers as far as attendance and less absenteeism. But I think the one thing I can say is we have accurate reporting.
Well,
And
thanks
we're
for doing
trying,
it the right way.
yeah, we have integrity with our numbers, I feel. So,
Mhm. Yeah. Well, thanks for taking on the challenge. So
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
yeah, Mr. Taylor does a great job of helping out in the high school and everything Mr. Nielsen's doing middle school wise, and everything going on at the elementary with social workers and everybody to get kids to school. I mean, it works, it helps. And our county partners are very instrumental there too. Our courts are very, very good at supporting our students and making sure that they are coming to school. And when a student goes through truancy, it's like this scary process, right? But really it's just somebody with some authority in the county saying, get your butt to school. And believe it or not, when they support the parents by saying, get your butt to school, it helps. You know, it helps immensely. So.
Could you tell me what qualifies for an exempt absence?
Sure. So when a student goes to the National FFA convention, they're gone for a student activity, but they're really going on school business. They're out of school, but it's an exempt absence because it's school business. They might be in the counseling office. They're in the building, but they're in the counseling office. So we have a code IB, in building, and that shows up as an exempt absence. They weren't in 4th hour geometry, but they were in school. They were just receiving a different service at that time. So it's kind of like they're doing school activities, whether it be in the building or out of the building, just not the actual thing that they're assigned to do during that time. I guess that's the best way I can put it. So it's not like a personal related absence necessarily, like a medical appointment or dentist, eye doctor, that kind of stuff. Yes. In professional world, we might call it professional leave. Like if I go to a conference, I'm still doing school stuff, but I'm not in the building being the principal that day. Although I'm answering emails all day, but.
So I can imagine parents might be operating under the impression that if they gave the student permission, it's an excused absence, but that's not the delineation. Parents saying it's okay versus a student playing hooky, those are both unexcused absences.
Well, a parent could give an excused day. Like we have 2 parent excused days throughout the year. You view it as personal leave. Okay, you've got 2 days. They don't fall under any of our sickness leave, things like that. What we track then is just up to a student's maximum absences, which is 18. And we send letters home at 3. We send letters home at 7. We have attendance meetings at 10 absences. We put students on contracts. We say, okay, we need to appeal for credit because you don't have enough seat time. All of those types of absences are added up when somebody has excused absences, not just unexcused, but actually excused absences, but they've been gone a number of days that they're missing that minimum amount of seat time to get the amount of content in the class to justify full credit. And the excuses there could range from, again, family trips. A lot of them are medical exemptions. So oftentimes we won't even have a meeting because we know somebody has an extenuating medical circumstance. We ask for a note. That way it's in documentation. We work with the student to catch up on the content. So we don't want to be in a position of pulling credit. We want to make sure that we're giving credit to students who earned it for actually satisfactorily completing the course. And we value having the student in the seat to get that content.
I also have a question on the integration gaps. And you may not have this readily available, but just kind of your sense for it. Maybe the gap will grow if either the white performance improves or the Latino Hispanic performance decreases, or a combination of both. So is the growing of that gap that we've done a lot of rigor with math and reading and things, is it that the white demographic is improving faster than the Latino Hispanic, or is that performance decreasing in the Latino and Hispanic population?
We actually have just more students overall, and a rising tide raises all ships. But when you have more people coming, they're just further behind. So in general, we're doing better across the board. But with more students coming in that have more needs, it looks like we're falling further behind, but we're trying to help more students who aren't ready and haven't been in our system for that long. So it's complicated, but I can tell you, like, we are performing at a higher level, but our gaps are getting wider because those that are coming in are making the numbers look different. Like a really good study would be students who have been in Windom since kindergarten, regardless of their race, ethnicity, whatever. That would be an amazing study to pull sometime, you know, when we've got a Saturday pizza party or something. Because that would show, like, okay, students who are just Windom students from K onward or preschool onward, how does that look? You know, versus coming to us as a 4th grader or a 7th grader or an 11th grader. All of those kids are included in this data, of course, because we have to report on it to the state based on the identifiable feature that they're telling us to report on. So in general, we're doing better, but we've got student groups that are struggling. And I would say since the last 5 years are struggling even more mightily. I'm not going to say it's a COVID thing. I think it's more related to their phones than anything, personally. But comprehension is less because attention spans are less. So that was off the cuff. That isn't part of the report. My 2 cents. You're welcome for that.
Any other questions for Mr. Joyce? You know, I think both these numbers here and what we saw with increased spending on special needs and things are just a testament to our mission and vision for every student. It is just going to be harder to service a 15-year-old that comes in with a 3rd grade reading level. But the fact that our staff and our administration is willing to take on those challenges and just say, yep, our scores aren't going to look as high and it's going to cost a little more, but we're going to do it. I think that's what makes Windom amazing. So good job.
One plug to that, just as an extension to that, Joel, will add is, you know, us adding last year a high school intervention position has been great because not only can that individual, there's a students, I mean, maybe they don't qualify for EL services anymore, and they're not a special education student, but they still are struggling. They're not doing great, okay? And our intervention teacher in the 9th grade can intervene and help those students out so they aren't falling further behind. And without us submitting that ADSYS grant to get some funding for that, but also supporting that here, we can't do that for those students. And then I would also offer, like, we're having conversations in our scheduling meetings about how do we find ways to reduce class sizes? Because the best thing we can do is make sure our quality teachers have fewer pupils in the classroom because the needs are higher. You know, the 28 of today looks different than the 28 of 10 years ago. And the needs are much higher because of those language features and things like that. So we have to be very conscious of that and how we're balancing those class sizes, and we're trying to be creative in how we schedule for that. So.
Any other questions or comments on the CACR? Okay. Is there a motion to move this forward?
Move approval?
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, same. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Joyce. Okay, next we're going to take a look at the EMW contract that was ratified. Mrs. Frank.
All right, I want to begin by saying thank you to Angie, Barb, Bruce, Holly, and Peggy for serving on the EMW Negotiations Committee this year. The union ratified the contract last Thursday, and so the final step is for this board to approve it tonight. I have a summary written, Holly, that's, oh, it might be underneath this. It's just going to be a little bit easier to follow along here. There it is. Great. Okay, I took all the points in the contract and created a summary so it's easy to understand for you. So in year one, all teachers, regardless of their education level or years of experience, all teachers get a raise of $1,500 for year one. Year two, all teachers get an increase of 3.18% in their salary. We've done it this way for several years and for good reason. Year one is always a dollar amount, year two is always a percentage. That's good for the teachers that are newer to the system because they get an equal amount, and it also raises our base for hiring. All right, then we go into insurance. There was an increase in the single plan, the single contribution from the district. It went from $10,000 to $10,600 in year one and $11,300 in year two. This is a $1,300 increase over the 2 years. For the family contribution, it went from $15,000 to $16,300 in year one and $17,600 in year two. That's a total increase of $2,600. Included in the contract is language that will allow the board to set the salary for occupational therapists, physical therapists, and speech and language teachers. This has been something that the board has been working on for quite some time, and it is now in the contract. There was a clause that was added to clarify that teachers cannot leave when there is a half-day professional development day scheduled, a PLC, or work time is scheduled on the calendar. What was happening is that the contract does say that teachers can leave on Fridays when the students leave and after the buses have departed. It also says teachers can leave under those same conditions right before a holiday. So what happened one time last year is we had a professional development day scheduled right before Christmas break, I think it was. So the students left at 12:30, and then we had teachers saying, whoa, hang on, I can leave too because it's the day right before a holiday. So anyway, this language takes care of that, so we shouldn't have that issue anymore. They did not leave, they just asked for clarification on that, by the way. Study halls can now be supervised by a para if all available teachers have refused the right because it creates an overload. This is another one of those things we've been working on for a while to create some flexibility. So again, if a teacher is available, they can have that assigned to them first. If they don't want it because it creates an overload for them, then a para can be assigned. All right, this next bullet point talks about teachers who have in excess of 138 sick days. So the maximum amount that teachers can accrue is 150 sick days. And so when teachers reach that threshold, they wanted to negotiate in some kind of a buyout or a payment for not losing sick days, right? So if I'm at 150 sick days and I just received 12 more because it's the beginning of the year, and I go all the way through the year and I don't use those 12 days, I just lose them. So this is an option for teachers to get a little something instead of losing them. Okay, so they would get $75 per day, maximum of 12 days payout. This next bullet point has been an unwritten rule in the district for as long as I've been here, and it's nice just to have it in the contract so everybody's on the same page, and it's easy for HR to refer to. So Teachers can use no more than 5 personal days in 1 year. So they actually get 3 days, but they can carry some over to reach a maximum of 5 days. But let's say they just have 3 personal days. We have allowed them to take 2 days unpaid so that they can go on a family trip or, those kinds of things. So maximum of 5 personal days, paid or unpaid. The teacher's concern was daycare closure because they're, running into trouble. You can't use sick days for daycare closure. ESST does not allow it. So we did work this into the contract as well, that there could be some additional personal days used if daycare closure occurs with a sub-pay deduction. For Minnesota paid leave, we just have in the contract that all statutes will be followed and refer to the employee handbook. For 403B, the maximum contribution from the district was $45,000. Now it's been raised to $50,000. There was one page in the contract that was removed on the union's request. It was an extra duty assignment page, and those dollar amounts are just set by the administration anyway, so they didn't feel that it needed to be in there. 1.5% each year has been added to the extracurricular positions. All right, and the total package comes to 8.5% over the 2 years, and that dollar amount equals $749,294. All right, that ends my report. What questions can I answer for you?
I know we've already spent a lot of time on discussion here. This was a big, long, good process. Really important topics, so I'm glad we took our time on it. But any other questions?
Just to clarify for me, that 1.2 already in there?
We
Maybe I'm just
increase.
confused.
That's okay. Let me tell you again, or let me just explain. So it's been increased by, it's 1.5 actually. It's changed in board books. That's a typo on the screen. 1.5% increase in the salaries for the coaches that provide extracurricular coaching.
Oh, for the coaches?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Any other questions? Or is there interest in moving this forward?
Approval? Second?
Okay, motion and a second. Again, any comments or questions? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for all your work on that. Okay, next up is more just an official piece of business. We've already been through the emotion of all this, so everybody, it's okay. But we're going to approve the resignation of the businessman Peggy Peffer effective December 31st, 2025. Is there interest in moving that forward?
Move approval.
Okay, I should reword that. Is anybody willing to make that motion?
Yeah, move approval, but I do really thank you for all that you've done. And I've only been here 1 year, but hear nothing but great things. You've done an amazing job, and thank you for being willing to stay on too, to help out as needed. And so really appreciate you.
Yeah, this has been a beautiful transition. Awesome. Any questions? Comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes. Barb, you look like you have your remote. Oh,
Yeah. I'm just going to say thank you so much, Peggy, for all the learning experiences that you've given us, and I appreciate all the knowledge that you share with us. You make our job much easier knowing that you're doing your job. And I am very thankful also that you gave us the notice so we can actually fill this position correctly and allow a smooth transition. Thank you so much. And you enjoy your retirement, and I will miss you very much. On the walks.
okay, well, the really good news is we get to move into item number 11 because Peggy's still willing to set us up for success. So we're going to take action on approving a 1-year professional development contract for a business manager. Mrs. Frank, will you tell us a little more?
The terms and conditions for this are included in your board packet. Peggy and I talked about it. I also am very thankful and grateful that she's willing to stay on for 1 more year on a consulting basis as needed. So in your contract, you'll notice that the rate of pay is $65, no more than 5 hours a week. If there's a project that requires more than 5 hours a week, prior approval would be needed. Peggy will record her time on a timesheet, submit it to the payroll office. All of these things are in your board packet. So again, we're just thankful that Peggy's willing to stay on and answer questions throughout the next year, because there are things that are coming up that Holly has not done yet. So, it's going to be important that she can ask questions. So thank you, Peggy, and I ask the board to approve, please. Yeah, so part of the contract here is that Peggy will take unlimited phone calls, texts, and general questions at any hour of the day or night, weekend or... So yes, Holly has Peggy's number, and it will...
The intent
pretty
is
easy.
only if they have a special project or if I need to log in or do something, then I will record that time. My intent is not to use 5 hours a week. It's just there to help support when Holly or Jamie need it. That's it.
I'm glad we got the good blend for the project.
Yeah, and as Mrs. Frank was building the contract and kind of asking for board perspective on it, Mrs. Pfeffer was like, just want to be helpful, however you want, just want this to be easy and helpful for everybody. So putting the contract together, working with Mrs. Pfeffer on it was really awesome. So any other questions on this? Is there interest in moving it forward?
I'll move this one forward.
Yeah, everybody wants you to stay for 1 more year. Okay, good. All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes. Okay. Meeting is adjourned with plenty of time to get to the concert. Good job, everybody.